Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to be taking a look at BNY Mellon.
Yeah, we're diving into a recent report on them and, trying to figure out if their stock is a good buy or not.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because at first glance, their financials look really
Oh,
good.
yeah. They've had a great year, but there are some analysts out there who are saying, maybe hold your horses.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. The report starts off talking about, their stock performance,
Right.
ticker symbol BK. Currently, it's sitting at $84.33 a share.
Down just slightly from the day before.
Yeah, it's a little dip. But the 2024 earnings report actually shows record revenue and net income.
Yeah, over 18 billion in revenue, which is pretty impressive,
Wow.
leading to a net income of 4.3 billion.
That's not bad at all.
Not bad at all. And a lot of that success is being attributed to this One BNY initiative that they have.
So what is that exactly? What is one BNY?
So it's basically this huge reorganization project that they did,
Okay.
and it's really helped them to boost efficiency and growth,
Gotcha.
particularly in areas like treasury services and collateral management.
Interesting.
They have essentially become a leaner, meaner financial machine.
And their projections for 2025 are even more optimistic, right?
Yeah, they're forecasting growth in net interest income, and they think that fee revenue is going to keep climbing.
So they're expecting good things?
Yeah. Plus, they just acquired a company called Archer,
Oh, right. I read about that.
which really solidifies them as a top player in the managed accounts ecosystem.
Now, they're managing a lot of people's money.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so that all sounds really good. But um, how does all of this translate to, like, the actual value of their stock?
Right. So the report puts their fair value at $79.64.
Okay.
But right now, the stock is actually trading higher than that at 82.30.
So it's a little bit overvalued, potentially.
Yeah, that's where things get tricky. Some analysts see this as a red flag, like, oh, it's overvalued.
Yeah.
But others are saying, BNY Mellon's doing so well and their outlook is so good that maybe that premium is justified.
So it's kind of like a risk versus reward type of thing.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
you also can't forget about the fact that the financial sector is inherently volatile.
Right, of course.
I mean, global events, interest rates changing, all those external factors can throw a wrench in the best laid plans.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You can't predict everything.
Nope. And that's where it's important to understand what Wall Street analysts are saying. It's like peeking into the minds of the people who do this for a living.
Right. So what are they saying? What are they thinking?
Well, it's interesting because some of them have very different opinions.
Really?
Yeah, the report mentions Betsy Gracek from Morgan Stanley. She actually lowered her price target for BNY Mellon.
Hmm.
But then you have Glenn Shore from Evercore ISI, and he actually raised his.
So they're not all in agreement then?
Not at all. It just goes to show that there's some uncertainty about how the stock will perform in the future.
So what's the bottom line here? We've got record profits, positive projections, strategic acquisition.
Right.
But then we also have a lot of debate about what it all means.
It's definitely a lot to unpack. I think the key takeaway is you got to look beyond just the surface level stuff.
Okay.
You have to dig a little deeper into BNY Mellon's strategy, like this One BNY initiative we were talking about,
Right.
and this new platform operating model they're using.
So what is that exactly? What is this platform operating model and why should we care about it?
Oh, it represents a pretty big shift in how BNY Mellon does business. It's all about improving efficiency and driving growth.
But-
By basically overhauling all their internal systems. So.
Like making things run more smoothly.
Exactly, yeah. Think streamlined workflows, simplified operations, and better collaboration across teams.
That's like a pretty big project.
Oh, it is. It's a big undertaking, but if they can pull it off,
It could be a real game changer.
yeah.
But let's be realistic. I mean, big changes like this, they don't always go perfectly right.
Oh, you're totally right.
So what are some of the potential downsides or risks with this new model?
Well, the report mentions, there could be some short-term disruptions as they're figuring things out.
Sure, yeah.
And then there's the whole question of execution. Like, they need to have the right people and the right processes in place to make it work.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, you got to have the right team.
Exactly.
Plus, on top of that, they're still dealing with a really unpredictable global landscape.
Right.
Geopolitical stuff,
Mm.
interest rate volatility.
Yeah, all those external factors that nobody can really control.
Exactly. And those could really mess things up, even for a well-prepared company.
Absolutely. The report actually specifically flags those things as potential threats. They're definitely not something to ignore.
So how do they plan to deal with that then?
Well, that's where their strong balance sheet comes in.
Okay.
And their kind of conservative approach,
So being cautious.
Right.
Mhm.
That gives them a little bit of a cushion against those external shocks.
Like a safety net, kind of.
Exactly.
But even with a safety net, I mean, investors still have to think carefully about those risks.
Absolutely, yeah. There's no such thing as a risk-free investment.
So let's go back to those analyst opinions for a second, because the report actually has like a whole table showing how they've changed their price targets.
Yeah, and it's kind of all over the place.
So some of them are lowering their target.
Yeah, like the folks over at Morgan Stanley.
Hmm?
Probably because of those macroeconomic worries we were just talking about.
Right. Makes sense. But then some of them are actually raising their targets, right?
Exactly, yeah. Like Evercore ISI.
So why is that? What are they seeing?
Well, I think they're probably more optimistic about BNY Mellon's ability to execute on those strategic initiatives and capitalize on those growth opportunities.
So they think they can pull it off.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, so it's kind of like this tug of war between optimism and caution.
Pretty much, yeah.
So for someone who's like trying to make sense of all this information, what are some like key things to focus on when you're thinking about maybe investing in BNY Mellon?
Well, I would say first take a look at their track record.
Okay.
How have they performed in the past, especially when the economy was shaky?
So like during recessions and stuff?
Exactly, yeah. And then really dive into those strategic initiatives.
One BNY.
Yeah, One BNY, the platform operating model, the acquisition of Archer.
Right.
Like, do they make sense? Do you think they can actually make them work?
Right. So it's not just about the ideas, but about the execution.
Exactly. And of course, don't forget about those external factors we talked about.
Like what's going on in the world, basically.
Right. How is that going to affect BNY Mellon's business?
Okay, so you got to look at the big picture.
Exactly. It's all about understanding the company within the context of the market as a whole.
This report is pretty dense, though, I got to say. I mean, it's got all these financial statements, historical trends, segment breakdowns.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely packed with information.
A lot to digest.
But, you know, if you're really looking for more detail, the report actually has excerpts from BNY Mellon's latest earnings call transcript.
Oh, wow. So you can hear directly from the leadership.
Yeah, you can hear them talk about their strategy and their outlook.
That's cool. But even with all this information, I think it's important to remember that investing is a long game, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's not about getting rich quick.
It's about being patient and doing your research.
Exactly. Don't get caught up in those short-term market swings or, you know, what's trendy at the moment.
Right. So slow and steady wins the race.
Kind of it.
That's the idea, yeah. So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
We've talked about BNY Mellon's performance, their strategy, the risks and opportunities they face.
Right.
And we've even looked at what the analysts are saying.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground. Now it's really up to the listener to take all that information and use it to make their own decisions.
Right.
Do your own research, weigh the pros and cons, and decide if BNY Mellon fits with your investment style and your risk tolerance.
Because everyone's different.
Exactly. There's no one right answer here.
So we've given you the tools and the insights, but ultimately the decision is yours.
Right. And remember, this is just a starting point.
Okay.
There's always more to learn, more to explore when it comes to finance.
It's a never-ending journey.
It is, yeah. And speaking of exploring, there's a lot more in this report that we haven't even touched on.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, there's a whole section on their revenue by segment,
Okay.
which breaks down exactly how they're making money, you know?
So like a deeper look into their business model.
Exactly.
And what about dividends and buybacks? Did the report talk about that?
Yeah, they actually have a whole discussion about their commitment to returning capital to shareholders through those things.
That's important information for investors.
Yeah, especially if you're looking for income or growth. So I'd encourage everyone to check out those sections of the report and see what they think.
It's like peeling back the layers of the onion.
Right? The more you dig, the more you find. But hey, if you're feeling overwhelmed by all this information, don't worry.
Yeah, it can be a lot to take in.
That's why we do these deep dives.
Right.
To break down these complex topics into pieces that are easier to understand.
So you can make informed decisions.
Exactly. We're here to guide you through the world of finance, one deep dive at a time.
So we're like your financial Sherpas.
Something like that, yeah.
All right, before we wrap up, I want to go back to something we mentioned earlier.
Okay.
The importance of not just taking things at face value,
Right.
you know?
Right, not just believing everything you hear on the news.
Exactly. You got to seek out different perspectives
Absolutely.
because it's so easy to get caught up in the hype or the doom and gloom, you know?
Yeah, you got to be careful about that. A true understanding requires a more nuanced approach.
Don't just follow the crowd or what one analyst says.
Right.
Do your own research, question assumptions, and form your own opinion.
Exactly.
Okay, so think for yourself, basically.
Yeah, and remember, the financial landscape is always changing.
So what's true today might not be true tomorrow.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to keep learning.
Stay curious.
Yeah, stay informed and never stop seeking knowledge.
It's like investing in your own knowledge, right?
Exactly, yeah.
The more you understand about finance, the better decisions you can make, whether it's for your own investments or just, understanding what you're reading in the news.
Absolutely. It really is empowering when you start to understand this stuff, and that's kind of what we're all about here at the Deep Dive.
Right. We're trying to give you the tools to understand this complex world.
Exactly.
Now, before we wrap up completely, there was one more thing in the report that really stood out to me.
Okay, what's that?
BNY Mellon seems to be really focused on becoming more than just a traditional bank.
Right.
They want to be like this comprehensive solutions provider.
Yeah, they're definitely moving in that direction. I mean, think about their acquisition of Archer and the launch of products like Collateral Loan and Altsbridge. It's all about expanding their offerings beyond just basic banking services.
So they want to be like a one-stop shop for all your financial needs.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's a pretty bold move, though, don't you think? Especially with so much competition out there.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a tough industry. But, we are seeing this trend across the whole financial sector.
Really?
Yeah, companies are trying to find ways to stand out, to offer something unique and provide more value to their clients.
So BNY Mellon's not alone in this.
Not at all. But whether or not this strategy will work for them in the long run,
Right.
well, that really depends on how well they can execute it and how well they can adapt to, the changing needs of their customers.
That makes sense. You got to stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly.
And I guess it also depends on how well they can integrate all these new acquisitions and products into their existing operations, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's not just about adding things on. It's about making sure everything works together seamlessly.
So there's a lot of potential, but also a lot of challenges.
Definitely, yeah. It's a complex undertaking, but if they can pull it off, it could give them a real advantage.
So it's kind of like a make or break moment for them.
In a way, yeah. I think that's a good way to put it.
So to sum it all up, BNY Mellon's a company at a crossroads. They've got this strong foundation, impressive financials, and a big vision for the future.
Right.
But they've also got some hurdles to overcome.
Yeah, like we talked about, the market's unpredictable. There's a lot of competition out there.
Right. And transforming a company this big, it's not easy.
Nope. It's a real challenge.
So it's a story that's still unfolding.
Exactly,
Right.
yeah. And as investors, we get to watch it play out and decide if we want to be a part of it.
And that's what the deep dive is all about.
Yeah, giving you the information and the insights you need to make those decisions.
But ultimately, the power is in your hands.
Absolutely.
So if you enjoyed this deep dive into BNY Mellon,
Yeah.
and you want to keep learning about finance with us,
Make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell.
we've got a ton of other deep dives coming your way covering all sorts of topics, market trends, individual companies, you name it.
We're here to help you navigate the financial world with all its complexities and possibilities.
Because at the deep dive, we believe that knowledge is power.
Absolutely. The more you know, the better equipped you'll be to reach your financial goals.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.